So imagine this. Everybody in your house is asleep. It's 2, 3 in the morning. It's quiet. You haven't been sleeping anyway. So this is the time when you're up and your thoughts are constantly racing. You get out of bed. I got out of bed. I walk across the street with a belt in my hand. I tie it to the monkey bars, wrap the other side of the neck belt around my neck, and I just jump. The belt snaps. I fall crashing to the ground, and I'm just screaming and crying. Someone sees me or hears me, calls the police. Next thing I know, the police are there. They take me to the emergency room. Um, it's obvious what I was trying to do. I mean, and they get a doctor in there, and the doctor tells me, try Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Uh, which not probably not a bad suggestion. I mean, I guess that's what he did to relieve his stress. But nobody in my house knows where I am. Nobody knows that I'm even feeling this way because I've done such a good job at hiding how I feel or so I said a bad job of saying how I feel is what I should say, how I should describe it. And, they wake my wife up in the middle of the night, let her know, hey, your husband's in the hospital. He tried to kill himself. She has no idea that I'm even in that state of mind. So when she arrives, I'm embarrassed. I'm crying off the embarrassment of the fact that, I wasn't in my mind or view strong enough to have the will to live. But let's talk about it more. But before we do, wherever you're watching this, subscribe, like, keep up with the episodes, um, leave me comments, rate, review. Let's get some interaction going. Run it up. What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Corley. I am on a healing journey. And on that journey, I discovered the power of vulnerability. Vulnerability allows us to be our authentic selves. It allows us to build empathy for others and to work through our emotions easier and strengthen our most important relationships. The purpose of this show is to bring others on that same healing journey with me and foster some healing out there in the world. Welcome to Vulnerability is the New Sexy. I'm not okay and I need some help. These are difficult words to produce for some, for me at that time, for sure. How do you get to this point in your life where you feel like the only option is to die, to take your own life? I can say for me, and it's going to differ for across the board, everybody has several reasons as to why they want to take their own life. Just to name a few, we're talking about uh, hopelessness, traumatic events, um, a loss of connection, a longing for a connection. For me, and there's several others, but for me, I was dealing with, I had lost my mother when I was 15 years old. So all the way back to being a teenager, I'm 15 years old. I start dealing and having ideations at that time. Ideations, meaning I started wanting to die. That's what suicidal ideation is. Wanting to take your own life. Where is this coming from? My mother passes and I start believing things about my life. No one loves me. I have no purpose. There's nobody left in the world that's going to care about me the way that this woman did. And, shortly after here, I'm living on my own. I have my own apartment. I'm still in high school, so I'm already isolated. And then um, at that time, kids are going to handle situations how they handle them. So for me, um, all the people that I relate to or is closest to in this time frame are children. We're teenagers. So um, I'm developing a codependency on people who are not emotionally mature. I'm not emotionally mature at the time. And it starts to you start to I started to develop a false sense of self-worth because this moment in time for me kind of never really ended, but it was just a blip on everybody else's. People justifiably so moved on with their lives. And I didn't do that. I didn't get it. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't, you know. Now there is a failure of the adults in my life who didn't put me in a situation where I could heal or understand grief or the trauma that I just suffered. I was just back to business as usual, and you start hearing the things. Oh, you're so strong. You God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Or the worst one, in my opinion, is somebody has it worse, which is one of the most invalidating things because you start to internalize that, well, somebody has it worse. Meanwhile, you are suffering. So you start to get angry at yourself for not being able to overcome what you believe is not the worst situation, but it is the worst situation to you. It is the worst thing that has ever happened to you. And from your perspective, the reality is nothing has happened worse. So the fact that somebody else has it worse somewhere is irrelevant. It's a terrible thing to tell somebody. I just want to put that out there. But so you go through your life trying to appear strong or be strong. Coping for me was achievement. Oh, still graduated high school, still moved on to college, and you know, and then you turn that into your codependency becomes trying to be what you needed for other people. Um, for me, I needed to be, I needed someone who helped me guide myself through a very important era in my life. I mean, this is a transition from childhood to adulthood, and I didn't have my number one. And I never wanted anybody else to feel like that. So um, I developed a need to help other people not feel that absence, and it was very unhealthy. It becomes, like I said, a codependency where um, you know I'm depending on being needed and positioning myself to be needed. And when that's taken away, or when I feel like someone doesn't need me anymore, there's a very negative reaction leading up to that night in the park. And even after that night, I don't make the necessary adjustments to take care of myself. It's just, okay, it's kind of out here a little bit. People know that people in my life know that I don't want to live anymore, or at least my wife knows. And anybody else that I might be communicating with about it probably doesn't, honestly doesn't care enough or doesn't know. At least this is what I'm telling myself. In reality, they don't know how to care, know how to take care of someone who's in that situation. So let's talk about both sides of that coin. So when you are dealing with someone who is suicidal and dealing with suicidal ideation, the first thing that I believe that you need to do is take care of yourself at all costs. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you are okay because that is a lot of stress, and you have to give yourself grace to understand that you didn't do whatever it was necessarily to put that person in the situation that they're in, and you might not be the person that can get them out of it if you have. Some people are just mean. That is a fact, and some people do have a disregard for people and not are not aware of how your actions could affect someone. But hurt people. So everybody comes from some sort of hurt, and they transfer it if they don't have the emotional intelligence to deal with their own hurt, and they'll transfer that hurt to someone else, not really knowing or understanding that, hey, you could be risking somebody's life. That's important. So to me, important message, important code of life for me is to, if I can't help, at the very least, do no harm. I want to try to do my best to do no harm, but you are entitled to your boundaries, and like I said, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Try to do that without doing any harm. Now, um, you have to be validating if you are in a situation where you have to look after someone who has suicide. Are you validating their feelings, or are you shaming them or putting them down, or invalidating their feelings? Uh, you know, Telling them that they don't have a right to feel the way they feel. That's never the answer. I know it's difficult for someone who doesn't want to kill themselves to understand why somebody would want to take their own life. I can understand that. Um, but the key is validation. You want to make sure that you are confirming and understanding and listening to what it is someone's trying to tell you. Because a lot of times, people that are suicidal are just seeking a connection. And a lot of times you just don't get it. And you start telling yourself some, irrational thoughts. And again, what does it lead to? It's very important to understand whether or not the person you're talking to has an actual plan. Do they have an actual plan for taking their own lives? Because then this is an escalated situation, and it may be beyond the scope of what you're capable of, and it's time to enlist some help. Um, but like I said, take everything must be taken serious, even if you believe this is someone who seeks attention on a regular basis. Doesn't matter. Do you want to be wrong? Do you want to be wrong in this moment? I don't think so. So for me, let's go back to my own story for a second. So after this suicide attempt, um, I began to try to go ahead and move forward with my life. And what was happening with me was I wore a mask. I did try to seek out therapists. I went through several, honestly, three or four, and none of them were a good fit for me. And for a couple of years, I would cope with throwing myself into teaching and coaching and being there for other people, and that gave me enough purpose, enough self worth to want to continue life. But it was just like putting a band aid over a gunshot wound. It wasn't enough. And eventually, um, uh, um, a severe traumatic event occurred in my life that, caused me to be honest with myself and say, not feeling well. I don't really feel like I can do this on my own. And I finally found the words to say, I'm not okay and I need help. And I checked myself in to a inpatient facility, and that is where my life changed. That is where I discovered the real power of talk therapy, group therapy. I locked in and started being vulnerable and stopped hiding the things that were making me feel the way that I felt about myself, because I wasn't really expressing. I was just, throwing out little bits and pieces, but not really, again, being, overly vulnerable about all the pain. And I started discovering things about myself that I didn't even realize. I didn't understand that I was still upset with my father. I didn't understand, how upset I was at my mother, and I didn't understand how, you know, disingenuous I was showing up in life, not letting people around me be aware of how I felt, not setting the proper boundaries with the people in my life, and I was allowing uh, people to overstep my level of comfort, and it was just causing me so much anguish and pain. And then and in that inpatient time, I learned the power of therapy and what happened when I came out of that situation. Not only was I so locked in on, you know, what was going on, I saw an ability in myself to help others in group, but also for the first time, I learned how to help other people and take care of myself at the same time. So I said, I should be, I should dig deeper into this. And when I went back to school and became a therapist, but it's not the healing. I still struggle with a lot of, still struggle with a lot of things. And sometimes illogical thought still creeps into my mind. And I have to, use skills that I've learned through therapy and the healing process to overcome a lot of those illogical thoughts. And I guess if I could sum it up, I would say one of some of the best things I've learned is rigorous honesty with myself. So when you are vulnerable with other people, it is a tool or a stepping stone for you to, be vulnerable with yourself, be honest, give yourself grace, So for in the prior to therapy, it was much easier for me to tell myself that nobody cared about me, nobody loved me. There is um, verifiable evidence that people love me and care about me. It's verifiable. So for me to continue to tell myself that, I have to acknowledge that I'm lying to myself. Doesn't mean that it's always I feel better instantly, but that change in language helped me understand that I'm doing that in so many areas of my life. Oh, I'm a failure. Again, verifiable evidence that I'm not a failure. I can point to several instances that prove that I'm not a failure. So again, I have to change the way that I think about that, because that's not honest, not being honest with myself. And this also, in the course of being honest with myself and having empathy and grace for myself, allows me to have empathy and grace for other people. There's less judgment in my life now. I don't have the same feelings about other people that I once had, you know. So I just wanted to briefly touch on, the process of the healing journey. And I'm still on it. Like I said, there's things that I'm dealing with at this very moment that I'm still struggling with. Uh, Thoughts and feelings that I have about people in my life that I'm still struggling with, um, that cause me pain. And if somebody's out there that is dealing with in excruciating pain, and you don't feel like there's hope. um, and you hear the sound of my voice. It took me hearing the sound of somebody that understood where I was in the moment, and gave me the hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, for me to start actively working towards, you know, healing. And I understand that everybody's not going to understand. If you haven't been in this position, it is very difficult. And I can't expect everybody that I come across to understand. Somebody out there right now is saying, oh, you just suck it up. Just suck it up and move forward. You're a sucker for wanting to take your own life. I understand. I understand. I don't necessarily need everybody to get where I'm coming from. Somebody understands it. And I understand if you were in this situation. I get it. And I'm telling you, I'm still here. I'm still here. That was just one attempt to take my own life. Not the only, but I survived that, and I survived all of them. And I'm still here today. God willing, I will survive tomorrow. So that's all I got, man. It's, keeping it short and sweet with some of these episodes. I understand I haven't been as consistent lately. I'm really struggling with a lot of things right now. I'm not okay all the way. And I can admit that, and I can, as a therapist, I can admit that and recognize that, hey, I still go seek help. The helper needs help sometimes. I am regularly in therapy. I actively work. And I say that to say that, you know, just because you're not healed up completely doesn't mean you're not healing. That's all I got for today. Listen, subscribe, follow me wherever you listen to podcasts, follow me on TikTok, Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Leave me a comment, a like. Talk to me in those comments. And remember, vulnerability is the pathway to healing. See you next time.